I'm excited about today. Co-host series. I'm bringing back from season 1, season 2, my co-host and business partner, Dr. Robert Barton. He's back. He visited us here in Colorado Springs. So we are in the studio with the lights on and we are talking business. And today, 5 ways you are sabotaging your new patient or new customer acquisition and how you can tweak those to instantly see results. Now, this is not something that you have likely heard before. Many of you out there are doing a couple of these, but some of these things are really advanced, really innovative, and I can promise you none of you are doing all of it. This is an episode that you are going to want to listen to from start to finish. You want to take notes because we're going to teach you some really cool things today, and when you do them, you're going to see some awesome results. So if you're ready, let's go.
Welcome to the Brian Wright Show audio experience. A podcast dedicated to transforming lives, careers, and businesses. And now your host. He's a husband, father of 2, an international business and life coach, the founder and CEO of New Patient Group and Wright Chat, and a consultant and global speaker for some of the finest companies in the world, such as Invisalign and many others. Now, here's your host, Brian Wright.
Hey everybody, welcome inside the broadcast booth. And if there is ever been an episode that you have listened to in this podcast where if you're scared to hear the truth, you're going to get your feelings hurt, whether you've been watching us for years, listening to us for years, or you're brand new, if you get your feelings hurt easily, today is not the episode for you. You need to turn us off right now because we're going to get real with it with Dr. Robert Barton, who's in the house. Hey, man.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, man. A lot of you, for the first couple seasons of this podcast, if you've listened for many years, know that this was the co-host. We used to be a team. And then I don't know what happened. We're not a team anymore.
I think you just kind of ran off and without me.
I did. I had to go solo. Yeah. I think it was just hard coordinating the podcasts and really scheduling it and everything. It just became, is what it is. But anyway, we've got the lights going. It's not 100% done, but hey, YouTube followers, how are you doing? Welcome to the new studio. It's pretty good, huh?
Yeah,
Chairs
it's great.
Are comfy.
You know, got some technical things worked out, and ready to share some insight.
Yeah. Well, you may be someone that says technical issues. What is that? Well, we've actually already shot this podcast, but we had a little bit of video problem. So it was really good the first time. We'll see how we do the second time. But now the video is working. And hey, quick shout out. This is probably going to be coming out as we do this podcast before. I don't know if we're 100% sure, but it's going to be coming out before the Align and Shine event put on by Invisalign in San Diego. They had me kicking off that event. So if you're a podcast listener and you're in the audience, make sure to come introduce yourself. There's going to be amazing. Matter of fact, all that content that I'm going to be delivering is 100% brand new and can't wait to see the audience. So let's dive in. You want to dive in?
Let's do it.
I mean, I'm telling you right now, and I was saying in the beginning, everybody, if you get your feelings hurt easily, I'm going to come at you today. We're both going to come at you, but just with some real world data, some stuff that we plugged into Gemini. But Rob's in town, mainly for fun, but also we're shooting a podcast. We went whitewater rafting as we did we're doing this episode. We went whitewater rafting yesterday, so we're having some fun, but also business. For those of you who don't know, he's my business partner with one of my companies, Wright Chat. And he's about to tell you a story about what happened on our way home from whitewater rafting and your blown out foot. So tell everybody the story.
Well, actually, we were trying to coordinate that for Wednesday. Mm-hmm. We were going to make the call. We made this call on Wednesday to potentially go into an office on Thursday and treat, but so the short story is we've had this trip planned for about a month prior to this, and I had triggered my left plantar fascia rucking. So I ruck with my wife because it's the only way to get my heart rate up. So I put 30 pounds on my back, and that additional loading had been triggering my plantar fascia. Well, last Friday, we decided, as boys do, I suppose, to go play basketball. Of course, that's a great idea at my age. And my foot was already hurting, so I went and played basketball with some colleagues of mine and had a great time for the first game. And in the second game, I basically planted my foot and pushed off on it. When I pushed off, my plantar fascia let go, it snapped. And I went down like a sack of potatoes, and I was done. So I've been limping harshly
Yeah.
since.
It looks like since he's been in Springs here visiting us, it looks like I'm walking around with
been
Grandpa everywhere I go.
Pretty pronounced. But so we had planned to go hiking and doing a bunch of things and whatnot, and here I am, basically can barely walk, and I took delivery of a device in my office to treat chronic tendinopathies and inflammatory based conditions such as plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendonitis, tennis elbow, you name it, all manner of things like that. And I took delivery on Tuesday, one day before I left to come here. And I treated it. I treated my foot, and it's a fresh tear, and I didn't know what the expectation was going to be, but I wanted to treat it again. So we looked up a provider that had this device called StemWave. It's a shockwave device, and found one 5 minutes from your house.
Yeah, right down the street.
I mean, very convenient. This is a Wednesday. Thought, hey, I've got plenty of time this week. We might get in there. I wanted to go in and be a patient, pay their fee, and have my foot treated, so I could keep the healing going and perhaps even be able to do a little bit more while we're here. And so we had a little bit of an urgency to the issue, and so I call. It's 4:00 on Wednesday, plenty of time. Well before 5:00. Which, as we'll talk about, they should be answering their phones way past.
It just makes me laugh even thinking about this.
Way past 5:00. But the expectation, at the very least, is that they might answer the phone up to 5:00. They did not answer the phone.
Imagine that.
Called him as a new patient, did not answer the phone, left a message, and there was even a discrepancy between the Google My Business listing and the message in terms of when they were open and when they weren't. So I was like, well, go ahead and just leave the message.
Yeah. Did the message say they were closed and Google said they were open, or was it the other way around?
It was either one or the other, but there was a discrepancy there. But yeah, left the message.
Yeah.
And so because we have Wright Chat and because this is the space we're in, and we'll talk in more detail about this here. But yeah, it's comical that they didn't answer one.
Yeah.
And that as I leave the message, they did not even call back, because I'm sure that I do not check my messages at my practice. I don't even know how to.
Yeah.
And I don't want to. I do not want to know how to check the messages. I expect my staff to do that. And staff members do not. I don't think they share with you always
the same urgency.
Yeah, when they don't live up to their expectations, or they don't do their job as well as they possibly could. So yeah, it was a missed opportunity. I was a little disappointed. I didn't get to get it. I think it's probably not time now. It's Friday now that we're shooting this, and we ran out of time. So it's a missed opportunity. But you have a problem with your shoulder that I really feel like StemWave could help as well. A chronic bicep tendonitis, and it leaves a bad taste in your mouth when you have this practice 5 minutes from your house, and maybe you give them another opportunity, maybe you don't. But this is the same thing that consumers go through day in and day out with doctors. We did a little deep dive on Gemini, and the stats were staggering. And I think you've already kind of shared some of these stats before the show here, but the stats are staggering. That 43% of people that call a medical dental offices, they go unanswered. Yeah, they go unanswered. Yeah, 43% of the calls. Yeah, and so many reasons for that. Maybe they call before you're open. Maybe they call during lunch when you're not staffed. Maybe it's just after you close, but it's convenient for them. And the problem is these are all missed opportunities for new patients to make a good impression on the practice and solve their problem, which is what we're all in practice to do. We're trying to solve people's problems. And I had a problem that did not get addressed, and it's disappointing, to be honest with you.
It is disappointing. It's disappointing for 100 reasons. One, all of you out there listening, hearing this data, 99.9% of you will still not wake up tomorrow morning and go fix the problem, right? You're just gonna, I don't know if it's people, we've all, there's so many different ways today's gonna go. We've all called businesses that we wanted to buy from, or at minimum inquire about possibly buying from, and they didn't answer their phones. It's happened to all of us, and it's happened to all of us multiple times that we ended up buying somewhere else. You could be calling a haircutter, you want a haircut, they don't answer, you end up somewhere else. Plumber, they don't answer, you call another plumber. A veterinarian, I teach, this was a long time ago, but Winston, our dog, got hit in the head. Braden hit him in the head with a baseball bat by accident. Swimming. Do you remember that story?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, crushed him in the skull. Needed a vet now. Regular business hours, like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Vet number 1, no answer. Vet number 2, no answer. Vet number 3 answered, got the business, and they were the vet until we moved from Houston to Colorado Springs. And the sad part about it is you could go to those 2 vets, and they're still not going to do anything about it. They're going to go advertise in all this stuff.
They don't know. They're not aware that you called an actual person in need and they didn't answer. They're just not aware of it.
You would think the data would make them aware.
If a person needs more business, and all businesses, I guess, to some degree need more business, what do people do? They pay more for advertising. They pay more to Facebook. They pay more to Google.
Yep.
And we were talking about this even last night, the idea that if you were paying Google or Facebook for advertising and discovered that the phone number, the response number that the patient would call to respond to the ad was wrong, it would be a 5-alarm problem.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
For sure.
just absolute emergency.
Yep.
Like, who can change the number now, you know? But when there's potentially up to 43%, and I know it's different between different practices, but our data shows that almost every practice misses calls.
Oh, yeah.
Because as backups, we answer and schedule people every practice every month.
Every month.
And if they're doing a great job and they're staffed really well and they're answering before and after and all the things we say, and if we don't get one month, we're going to get a few the next.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, it only takes 3 in a whole year to be cash flow positive with our service. But the point is that 43% of the calls, that's at least a 4-alarm situation.
Oh, you got that right.
Yeah, and it's not treated as such.
Yeah. Well, you take the 43%, which I know some of you out there, and again, going back to, we've all called places and it's all happened to us. But for some reason, many business owners out there, I don't know if, I think you're capable of thinking the way we teach on here. But a lot of you just out there, just sometimes maybe I think you're incapable of it, is that you won't realize and own up to the fact that it's happening to you. I mean, there's so many examples. There was a day spa back in League City. They were actually in Friendswood, but before we moved here. And this happens to a lot of day spas. It's like a single lady that owns it, and she's in doing a facial or a massage, whatever the services are, and they have a self-right. They're the ones answering the phone. And they're doing it because they think it's saving them money by not having a receptionist up front. Well, we found a service that they had, and we actually called them 3 times back when we lived there. No answer, no answer, no answer. Finally, we ended up going somewhere else. And it happens, again, trying to convince that lady that it's happening and to invest the money in making sure the phones are answered. She's never going to say yes. So many of you out there, the data is there. You think advertising is what, and that's the other piece too, is you think advertising is going to be the solution, but you would also think if you were going to advertise, wouldn't you want to make sure that your phones are being answered? And when Rob was just talking about the wrong number, where you're paying thousands for marketing and find out the number is wrong. Well, really, what you could equate what we're talking about too is, okay, what if you're running multiple marketing campaigns, 3, and 2 of them the number was right, and the 3rd one the number was wrong? That's exactly what's happening with new patients at your office or new customers, whatever type of business you are, because this happens to everybody. Is that, you answer some, and those are the ones that you see. What you don't see are all the ones you don't answer. And it's just driving me. I really got, Brian Lewis is our VP of sales with New Patient Group and Wright Chat. He lives in Denver, so he was over at the house here in Springs last night. We were cooking, having a good time. And we get into this conversation, and man, I got frustrated. I got lit up from being just mad standpoint, because I want to help. Like, I want to help everybody out there, but they're just backwards in how they think. And you would also, and I know you do, you can tell them at your practice, is because you get this, is that, you have ones that you're missing. all of you. So if you're somebody that thinks it's not happening to you because you have a big staff or whatever it is, just turn this off now, because it just go spend more money on advertising. Stop listening, because it's happening to you just like it's happening to every other business on the planet. The other piece is what happens in the ones they do answer. And they get this, in our niche, dental economics is saying people are calling at least 5 places now before deciding which to schedule. They're going in 3. The days of like when you left a voicemail at that practice, that in itself is according to this data that we were looking up, is very few people will leave voicemails anymore. And if you have to, it represents your brand like crap. But most people won't even leave a voicemail. They're gone. They're just going and buying from the next practice down the street.
Well, if they have a solution that they need, if they have a problem they need a solution for, they're probably just going to hang up and call the next place.
Exactly.
Depends on how urgent. Winston, for example, with his is basically an emergency.
Yeah.
You needed someone right then.
Yep.
And so you can't leave a voicemail and then have them call you back. We have a short window in this particular case that I was in town that I wanted to come in and just pay the one-time treatment fee. But again, if that works well, maybe you're a patient.
Then I'm there.
So life is so complicated that we don't often know how things affect things.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They didn't answer their phone. At least their message wasn't full, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't matter because I did leave a message and no one called me back.
No one called back.
And maybe they lose that opportunity for you to be a patient as well. And that's for a specialized treatment. That's not an immediate emergency, but we do have a short timeline that I can come in and participate with this.
Yeah.
I have the same machine, so I'm going to just, at this point, I'm just wait till I get home and I'll use the machine at the office, that is, not at home. But if you were to answer, if a business was to answer their phone, say from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which is actually what we offer, 5 days a week, you're going to be paying some people overtime to even cover that. And I would argue that's going to be in excess of what our fee is.
Oh, for sure.
As a backup.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make any sense either. So we're missing calls during the business hours, but we're missing calls on the fringe of the business hours as well.
Yeah.
And I only practice 2.5 days a week. Our office is open 4 days a week, but Wright Chain answers for us on Friday, for example, because if I'm spending on Facebook and Google, it's a waste of money for me to spend money on Google and then have the call go unanswered.
Right.
Or have the patient not have a positive experience with their first experience with us.
Right.
Because if they call and it's an answering service even,
Yeah.
Nothing against answering services, but they're not going to solve that person's problem because they're not tapped into our schedule.
Yep.
They can't just schedule them, And when patients call us and they're new patients, they get scheduled as if, the person on the other end was sitting at our front desk.
Well, you're one of the few that gets it. If you're going to do advertising, you got to make sure your receptionist is trained what to say and how to handle the inquiries. Very few people in any industry. Again, another reason we rebranded this to the Brian Wright Show is everything we're talking about crushes no matter what industry is listening out there. We just happen to be talking to our niche right now. And I see it time and time again. We're trying to convince people to go, look, create a great culture, train your team, then go do marketing. Very few people will do it because if you go do it in that order, now you're going to get the return. Marketing gives you more at-bats. The first two teach you what to do with those at-bats. Right? And that's something we were talking about with B. Lewis last night in throwing darts and everything. And it's such a good analogy is that, if you have incoming calls and you're missing them and you have a company or somebody, because today is not about, especially if this is the first time you've ever listened, this is not a pitch on Wright Chat. This is just a topic that happened yesterday that sparked interest in us doing this episode. And I wanted to do it together for a lot of reasons. One, it happened to him, and two, we're in business together. The amount of people that can comprehend culture first, train my team, then market. Wouldn't you want to do it in that order? Because if you do and you capture all the calls, you're not going to have to spend as much on the advertising. Or if you double down on the advertising, you're going to get that much better of a result. And it's so frustrating to watch business after business after business not get it, right?
Well, it's the leaky boat analogy. Yes. You can either, you can bail more water than what's coming in, and keep the boat afloat, right?
Yeah.
But why not just plug the leaks in the boat?
Yeah.
And so when we have well-trained staff that can answer the questions, we were talking earlier of the idea that a staff member, when an inquiry comes in and they can't answer that question adequately and the patient does not schedule,
boom, they're gone.
Very few staff members will come to the doctor and say, you know what, I just had a very challenging call. And I like to do everything in my power for that never to happen again.
Yeah.
And so could you work with me to answer this question? And then they take notes and they study it.
Yeah.
And they rehearse it. I have, in my career, I have absolutely rehearsed how to present, different conditions to people so that they can understand it and they can understand, what we can do for them. And then I repeat them over and over and over to make them better. But my income and actually the income of my employees rely on that. So I take it very seriously. But most employees won't do that. Most employees won't come to you when they have a loss, and I never know about that. Yep. I would never know if they had a bad phone call, bad experience, they did not convert the patient. I would never know that happened unless they volunteered it. And I would argue that most team members are not going to volunteer that.
I mean, for every one, especially at that pay level.
I do have one. I have had one that's done that recently, and it's pretty unusual. I've been practicing 29 years, and I can tell you it's unusual.
You need to lock her up, pay her more.
Right. I just took give her a raise.
I was going to say, there's 1 out of every 1,000. So there's multiple things. So we're going to start breaking this down. So first of all, the Google profile. So many of you out there, let's say you're open 5 days a week, right? Or actually, I'm going to use another example. Let's say you're open 4 days a week. For our niche out there, that's the case. A lot of them are open Monday through Thursday, not on Friday. Exceptions, of course, but just for example purposes, let's use that. So you're a consumer and you type in Invisalign into Google because you saw marketing or whatever it is. Practice A, B, and C, and unfortunately now it's D through Z pull up. I mean, they're all over the place doing it. And you want it, and it's Friday, and your business profile says you're closed. You're not getting that call, right? So you didn't miss a call, in the terms of they called and you missed it. You missed the call because your Google profile is all screwed.
That was an impression. And it would be very difficult to double click into all of those and really figure out where you're missing opportunities because you would have to look at your Google impressions. And then you'd have to know why you had an impression and they didn't call. Maybe they literally did see the hours and they didn't call because of that. In fact, that might be something I need to look at as well.
You should.
On mine because... Yeah, if they're not calling on Friday because we're closed, then, maybe they get back to it, maybe they don't.
Right. Well, I think, the point is that the Google profile should show, say you're up against, and I like painting this image because, again, this is not longtime followers, we don't do this on here, but today's just a little bit different episode. You're up against a practice that has Wright chat, right? And your practice doesn't. Or
a service like Wright chat.
Which
means that they schedule the patient as if they're at the front desk and the patient knows no difference.
They log into the software, caller has no idea that it's not really your team. If I'm shopping Invisalign, restaurant that has great steak, plumber, whatever. Again, this is why it's all the same if you can just use your imagination. And I go online and I see a Google profile that says open on Friday, even if you're not, right? You're closed, you're off.
I think there are different definitions of open, and not that I'm thinking about it. There's open for patients.
Correct.
And there's open to phone calls.
Correct.
And
differentiate.
Google My Business doesn't really differentiate between that. We're going to make patient appointments when we're available to make the patient appointment. If I'm busy and I have a patient limit for myself, if my limit has been exceeded, they schedule them a different time. They don't come in anytime the Google profile hours say that we're open. They come in when we say to come in.
Absolutely.
And so I think, being open to answer the phone is different. They want to come in on Friday. We don't see patients on Friday, but we are here. We're staffed.
100%.
And that means something. That's better than not being staffed.
Absolutely. The real point is, though, is that if you're not open, but you can say you are, then you're going to get the phone call. If it says close, you're not. They're going on to the next person.
You would have no way to know if you were missing phone calls that don't even get dialed.
Exactly. And that's where it all comes into an infinite. So many people out there, we'll talk about the corporations here in just a minute on how many lost opportunities this creates for them that count on the practice to sell their stuff. It's so hard to convince the masses to think this way, because what you all are looking at is production, collections, new patients, starts, etc. None of that is telling you the why behind it. And the why behind it is the data that matters. And it's just so hard to understand, because we've got the proof. One of the things I never thought of whenever we started Wright Chat and we got going was, and now it's proven true, is that, think about the three most common times that people will call a business: early in the morning, lunch, late in the evening. Why? Well, that's the most convenient time for them, right? And that's usually when the practice hasn't opened yet, everybody's at lunch, and then the practice is already closed. So we're also talking about all day, right? This isn't just you do it at certain times. You're also missing a ton of calls whenever you're fully staffed, regular hours, et cetera, which we've talked about a little bit, and we'll dive in more. But if you're able to extend your hours on your Google profile, so now you can say you're open at 7 a.m. and now you say you're closed at 7 p.m. Now you just added really probably maybe 4 more hours a day that you says you're open Monday through Friday. And now, and we've seen it, we see new patient numbers go up in the Wright Chat practices just because the Google profile says they're open now, because we're handling those calls. So even as the backup, you can still use us as primary. You go on vacation, your team's off, now we're primary. And we see the numbers going up just by changing the Google profile hours. And for whatever reason, I didn't even think about that when we started the company, but it just goes to show you how important these calls are, but how important it is to open up your business hours, because they're not calling you if it says you're closed.
I think it shines the light on the idea that we don't know what we don't know.
Exactly.
As providers. The only thing we know to do often is increase the advertising budget, increase the spend on Google, trying to get the phone ring more, but how simple could it be to just open up the hours in the Google My Business to where people can think they can call? They ostensibly think they'd be able to call if it says you're open.
Yep.
Now, does that mean they're going to come in? Not necessarily, but what doctor says, they get the phone call and they're like, well, just come on in right now. Yeah. They know they're going to have to make some type of appointment, right? Yes. So, and the other thing is, in this case, I left a message, and we talked about this earlier, and the idea that, okay, I leave a message. It was convenient for me to call right then. Yep. But when they call me back, it's probably not convenient for me to answer the phone.
You're going to miss it probably.
Yeah. And now it's just a phone tag situation, kind of back and forth. I'm doing something. I'm busy. Yeah. I called when I could deal with that matter, and it would be really convenient to do business with a business that could help me solve my problem right then.
Right then and there. I don't know why it's rocket science, but so much of what we teach is obvious to me, but it's not, for whatever reason, obvious to the masses, because we've all, we've all either not called a business before because Google profile with, hey, those reviews look nice. That's the other thing, right? You work so hard on getting as many 5-star reviews and a great rating as you can. Somebody types in whatever they type into Google, you come up, they see the reviews and they're like, wow, that looks pretty good. And then they see closed, boom, and they don't. And what do? They just call the next one and the next one and the next one. So all the reviews go down the toilet in that situation because they don't even pick up the phone to call you. So you can extend your business hours as if you have a backup solution like Wright Chat, or again, somebody else, not a. So that's one. 2, so fix your Google profile, everybody. Extend the hours, show that you're open, and real fast. Last night, and a lot of you who know me, customers out there, you know me personally, I love talking about this, and I think humans are like this, but man, you all in our niche are like this on steroids, where we'll get, hey, extend your business hours. We're talking about this last night when we were playing ping pong and darts when Brian Lewis was here. And like, extend your hours, get more calls. Simple. Where does your all mind go? It goes immediately to the what if. Well, what if somebody, tries to walk in my practice and nobody's there? Aren't we going to make people mad? And I'm just sitting there pounding my head into the door because, okay, let's say that happened. Right? That's going to happen one time, 2 times, worst case scenario, probably in a year or 2, 3 years. And for many of you out there, you're not a walk-in storefront to buy T-shirts from. Like, people know they need a reservation.
Possibly 1 or 2 times per day.
Exactly.
On the opposite side.
That's the piece. And you guys go to the 1 or 2 times rather than the 100. And I know, speaking for like an orthophy, what drives them crazy, and I see it is, when you start talking open choice and flexibility and letting people extend way beyond treatment time length, the docs and the team members will immediately go, well, what if they don't pay? Now, they say that with bias because they don't even know what the industry data says. And the other piece is they're saying it because they've had 1 or 2 patients screw them in the past, rather than going, okay, look at the opportunity to be able to get, 5, 10 more starts a month. And out of that, are there going to be some people screw us? Yeah, every business deals with that. That's managing cash flow risk, blah, 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 another conversation. But what about all the opportunity of the starts that start with you that otherwise wouldn't have and pay you fine? It's this mentality of always going to the what if, the single thing, and that trumps the 99%.
Yeah, no solution is going to cover every single situation, but you want to maximize the opportunities. You want to maximize the at-bats. And I know you were mentioning this earlier. There was this concept of more at-bats could improve the numbers, but a better batting average could also improve the numbers. Yeah. If you have more at-bats and a better average, now you're really cooking. Yep. Right. And that's the aiming up. They're always trying to improve and maximize all the opportunities there are within the practice to train staff. Unfortunately, it really comes down to staff. I can control myself. Yeah. I can control my other doctor to some degree as well. Certainly his income is tied to his performance. But, the staff members, it's a different situation. We happen upon wonderful staff members, I think, sometimes. Yeah. And I happen upon people who do not take their job as seriously sometimes as well. And right now we have a wonderful staff, thankfully, but I've had both. And I find that it's I've literally gotten lucky sometimes with some of the people that we've found.
Show for another time, because the HR, and that's a hot topic everywhere. And docs listening, niche listening, a lot of times you fall also into the trap of it's just happening to me. When it's happening, go to any restaurant and ask them how easy it is to find good waiters, and nobody wants to work anymore. All right, so Google profile piece, and how, because I don't think a lot of people realize how the Google profile piece ties into their phones and lack of calls. So now we talked about that too, voicemails. Right? And it's really several things, but you start diving into all these opportunities lost before they even arrive. It's just crazy. So voicemails, and there's a lot of data, whether it be a voicemail, a web lead, and web leads are a huge lost opportunity too. It's kind of like your voicemail not being called back. I see this with team members, staff, where they'll get a web lead and they don't check them. They don't call them back till tomorrow, the next day. It's like there's no urgency because it's not their business. And the business owner doesn't have a process in place to make sure they're calling. So there is hardcore data, everybody, in the sales world. I don't care if you're trying to sell Invisalign, a t-shirt. It doesn't matter. Low price, high price, doesn't matter. Hardcore data, you can look this up yourself, that if you get an inquiry online, or if you get a voicemail, as an example, if you call that person back in under 10 minutes, you have a high chance of conversion. Every minute that passes, the conversion is dipping rapidly. Minute 11, minute 12, minute 13. So one of the things that we have for this reason with Wright Chat is the ability, as a web lead comes in, as our agents reach out as your employee and get them scheduled. And we do that because they do it and we have eyes on this, in under 10 minutes. So the fact that you left...
Way under.
Way under.
Because 10 minutes would be actually a little bit too long.
Yeah.
But And why is that? Because the patient has already gone on to something else.
Correct.
And it's now inconvenient for them to converse, with the practice.
100%. So the fact that Rob called this practice and they didn't answer, which is a topic I'm about to talk about back here and again, but they never even called you back is another huge lost opportunity so many of you have out there. People, and again, few and fewer people are even leaving voicemails. But if they do, and I think the exception of when a lot of people do is, let's say I refer Rob, or in this case, let's say he got into that practice and they were great and he referred me there and I called and they didn't answer. Maybe I leave a voicemail because Rob tells me how great they are. In this case, he didn't get a chance to figure out how great they are because they didn't answer their phones. So you've got to have systems in place to where when new patients leave you voicemails, which they shouldn't ever have to do, it represents your brand like crap and most of them won't. But if you get one, they need to be called back immediately. That needs to be visibility. Everybody has in the office, somebody's got to be in charge of it, and somebody has got to call that patient back immediately. And if you don't have that person, it's another thing that Wright Chat does, not on the voicemails, but just on the web leads. You've got to have somebody on that. I cannot believe that practice hasn't even called you back 2 days later.
Well, another concept, how many spam calls do you get a day?
Yeah, lots.
Yep.
We know that with Wright Chat because our agents are flooded with them.
10. I mean, it's just every other phone call is a spam call. So if it has been 10, 20, 30 minutes or longer, and you receive a phone call from a number you don't recognize, it rarely gets answered anyway.
Yep.
I mean, in fact, if you answer those spam calls, you get more spam calls.
You get more. Yep.
So, not having to call a patient back, you're going to reach more of them as well, because a lot of people these days do not answer their phone, which I can't even believe is legal, that we have to deal with these spam calls.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But they're lost opportunities that we're not aware of.
Yeah. The spam calls have gotten so out of hand that when I travel a lot. So if I were to go to Miami, by the time I get to the airport, I'm already getting hit with spam calls from Miami area codes. That's how it happens traveling around. It just happened at Ross Russell. I was just in his practice in outside of Atlanta. By the time I got to Atlanta Hartsfield, I was getting bombarded with area codes from Ross Russell. I think he lives in Gainesville, Georgia. Pretty sure it's Gainesville, Georgia area codes. It's like they're traveling around with you. It's crazy. It's out of control.
I don't know when that's possible.
So now let's talk about missed calls, because we've got Google profile, we've got return the voicemails. You got to get on the web leads, and again, all these are just opportunities. And those are ones you like. The web leads, something comes in. Okay, now you know it, right? Those are easier to convince somebody. Okay, go call it in 5 minutes. Like the data's under 10, right? So it's got to be under 10, but the closer to 1 minute, the higher the conversion. You got to do it. That's easier to get somebody to go, okay, I'll install that in my business, because they see them coming in. They don't see the ones who never called because their Google profile screwed up and they say they're closed on Friday or at 6:30 when I get off work and I'm driving home. Those are harder and harder. You have to be, and again, the niche mindset we teach and that are our customers is they think differently than everybody else. They know these things are happening. The data doesn't have to show them. They know it's happening because they've called 1,000 places and nobody answers the damn phones.
How silly would it be to see and we've already talked about this, but I just want to make this point again. See a Google profile. It's a Friday. You want to make an appointment. Mm-hmm. It says it's closed. You don't make that phone call.
Nobody does.
How silly would it be to make the phone call and you know it's closed?
Yeah. Why would you do that?
Yeah. I just think if they need a solution, quickly, they're probably moving on.
For sure. 100%. And this is, God, this thing could spin in so many different ways. Now, the missed calls, which we're kind of already talking about, and they didn't answer the call. They don't know they didn't answer this call. They should, because if they listen to the voicemail,
right,
they would. But again, all of you out there have called businesses that didn't answer. This is probably my biggest frustration. So one of the things a lot of you know out there is that I go around the world teaching people what they need, rarely what they want. People want to hear the latest pay-per-click advertising or the latest landing page that's going to convert more people, or I need to up my advertising to get more tables at the restaurants or more new patient calls, when all of it is bull, right? Can those things help? Of course they can help. But a lot of what can really help are the data things that you don't know, like we're talking about. So the missed new patient calls is so in our niche, and all of you need to listen really closely about this. All of you, not all of you, a lot of you will complain that your clear aligner bill, let's use Invisalign as an example, everybody gets it. They'll complain that the lab bill is too much, right? And sometimes they could be at like $1,800 a case. They may be at $800, depending on volume and stuff like that. The industry complains a lot about it. But the ones who are running a high clear aligner, fully digital, fully outsourced model concepts, when you look at the Wright chat data, when we answer for a practice like that, they're not missing many calls, right? We'll answer 1 this month, 3 next month, maybe 5 1 month, 2, right? But it's all kind of in that area.
Talk about Dr. Olson.
Yeah, and that's where I'm gonna head there here in just a sec. So a lot of you, shout out Mark, hey buddy. The number that we answered for him month 1 was astonishing, because actually the thing with Mark is he is outsourced. Like the exam, this is why you can never, I outsource, I don't need it as much. Mark Olson, we answered, this is what, 4 years ago when we started with Mark? We're primary now, we're back up with a men. 13 new patients month 1. He paid for our service for like 5 years. Month 1, 13 people that they would have likely missed, charging $6,000 an average case fee down the freaking toilet.
For many of the reasons we've already covered.
Exactly. Exactly.
Close at lunch, before the office opens, after the office closes, all those things.
Yeah, and even if you're a practice, because what is relatively common in our niche, make-believe name Susie, and sometimes they'll alternate. So let's say they're open 5 days a week, they have 5 employees. Like a different employee each day will alternate and take like a cell phone with them when they go to lunch. So they're responsible for answering a call. So go to the office, it'll forward to the cell phone, they get it. And guys, that is not a solution. And it's not a solution for a couple reasons. One, is it better than nothing? Hell yeah. And you're probably your practice going, what do you mean it's not a solution? Like I've gotten new patients from that. And we're not saying that you can't. That's what all of you should be doing. But what happens if she's in the middle of ordering her lunch or she's going to the bathroom? I mean, I don't think Judy's going to talk to a new patient while sitting on the toilet. Like she's on her phone because it is her lunchtime with a friend. Her kid called. Like there's so many different scenarios on why your cell phone being forwarded to is not being answered either.
Yeah, it's a bad experience for our team members. And
Agreed.
It's a bad experience for the patient if they get a team member who's not able to handle their problem.
Yeah.
I.e. get them on the schedule. And maybe you can kind of get them on the schedule. But if they're in the middle of something else, trying to have a little bit of downtime and they're having to answer the phone,
right,
because they don't have a solution they can easily turn on, turn off, that's, again, not an answering service, then, it's not a good experience for either one.
No, it's not. And back to, when you look at people complaining about the outsource expense, what they're complaining about is a number they can see on paper, right? Every month and all of you can relate to this. Invisalign, you do 10 cases and, it's $1,800 a case, right? That can add up. We all know it can add up. Right? So you're looking at that. And therefore, you're always asking me, people at events, blah, 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 how can I reduce it? How can I be more profitable? And you're seeing it being yanked out of your bank account. The problem with almost everything we teach on here, certainly this, is none of these are ever going to be yanked out of your bank account because you never had them to begin with. Right. And damn, that's hard. OrthoFi is expensive. My clear aligner bill is expensive. New patient group, boy, you charge a lot. Well, Wright chat, you're too expensive. It's this mindset. Meanwhile, if they're losing 5 new patients a month times $6,000 on an average case fee, $30,000, $360,000 a year in potential revenue. If that was ever going in the account and yanked out, people would be blowing up our phones. We would have 10,000 customers in a week if that's how it happened.
Well, a lot of phone calls get broken off when someone takes $360,000 out of your account.
Yeah.
That phone call to the bank phone call. That's a 5 alarm.
Yeah.
It's a phone call to the police, phone call to an attorney, whatever the case may be. It's a 5 alarm situation.
Without a doubt.
But because of the way it happens, and people don't realize what they don't realize, because our staff members are not going to bring this to us, and we just don't know what we don't know. We're too busy. I'm way too busy in my practice when I'm there to know everything that happens at the front.
Right. Well, that's the next. I'm going to finish a couple things here, and then the next one we're going to is, okay, what happens when you do answer, and how many blown opportunities that you have there? Because it's arguably way more than you do on ones you don't even answer to begin with. So back to that digital workflow and outsource model. On paper, it's more expensive, but what starts to happen is as you convert more, the experience for the customers, patience goes up. What's really expensive, everybody out there, is the lost opportunities you have when you run an analog-based practice. And we see it with Wright Chat. Like when we, and the team kind of jokes about it, but just kind of give you some insight. When we look at the data on how many missed calls that we're grabbing for people, I can tell just from being in the industry and doing what we do and what we teach, I can look at the call data and I automatically know how the practice is run inside the doors. So if you look at the practices where we're answering, missed calls at 8 a month, 10 a month, 20 a month, just constant, or ones that were primary and the existing patient calls we're answering tons because they call your office and you don't answer. So therefore they hang up, call back, hit the new patient prompt. Now we're on with them. The practices that we answer the most existing patients, you are all running an analog, outdated model. I know it without even looking, is that your waiting room's packed. You have 1,000 calls every Monday morning, emergency appointments everywhere. And you think that that's cheaper than something that is, a little bit more expensive on paper, but it's an investment in your time, in your sanity, in the chaos that you don't have to have. So it's interesting to look at the data with Wright Chat and know exactly what type of business model they're running internally. And there's exceptions, like Mark Olson, he was exception. He was working with New Patient Group. He's shared a chair with aligners, ortho-phi guy, uses remote monitoring. So that also shows you that it can still happen to those practices, but typically it's just less than it is with the practices that are analog based and thinking that's cheaper. Meanwhile, they're losing $500,000 a year just by not answering the calls, not calling voicemails back.
It just frees up our staff to handle the things that they need to handle in the office.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So if we're a backup, and a new patient call rolls over because no one could grab it even when we're there. They're probably solving another problem.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And to hire all the staff necessary to cover all of those situations and never need for the phones to roll over to the backup is just, I can't even imagine how expensive that is if we're talking expense.
Well, even then, I don't care if you have 10 people up front. You're still going to miss them. This is, shout out David Boschkin, his practice, Palo Alto, longtime Wright Chat customer. And so one of the things, David and I spoken together with Invisalign for years, and he's one of my favorite people on the planet. And I was talking to him one day, and this is an exercise I want all of you to go do. So I'm talking to Dave one day, and we're talking about missed calls and things like that. And I think in his mind, he's like, yeah, it could happen to me. I don't know. But I said, Dave, just do this. For the next couple days, I just want your eyes and ears open. I guess really more ears. I just want you to hear how many phone calls are coming in. Your phone's ringing and nobody answers. I just want you to pay more attention. Like if you have some downtime, don't do some clin checks with Invisalign. Just to go in the waiting rooms, hang out. He did that for a couple of days. That's when he called me and he was like, oh shit. Like it happened so many times. I cannot believe I haven't noticed this before. And boom, Wright Chat customer. And this, if you guys all do that, because what happens, a lot of you as clinicians in our niche, and this is, again, that you could relate this analogy or example to any business in the world. But a lot in our niche, what you will do is your chair side, then you'll go into a new patient exam, then you'll go back chair side, and then you go hide in your office. Like that's what you, right? You're catching up on whatever it is. You go hide in your office instead of being on the floor, really paying attention to the opportunities that are being, your assistants aren't speaking to the patients right. They're not selling them to be compliant. Phones, like I just talked about, how money's being presented, how people are being greeted when they walk through your door. Like if you really just paid attention, like I would if I came in just taking notes, just observe. And there are lost opportunities everywhere. And there's a reason why inside the doors always produces a higher return than outside the doors. And almost every famous company, that's their recipe. But man, it is hard. But that convinced Dave. Like that was his, shining moment, light bulb.
Well, because it shines the light on the idea that the problem is there, and his staff are not going to bring that problem to him because it's a negative reflection on them.
Yep.
That's just saying, hey, we don't have, it's either that it's going to be a negative reflection on them individually or them as a team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That he has to hire more staff to cover the chaos that naturally happens within practice.
Well, because it could be looked at, or the employees feel that that's kind of a negative on them. This is what happens a lot of times in our niche out there, outside of our niche with people we help. You need to stop this mindset now. The moment I say this, is a lot of you, and I've seen this with people that inquire about Wright Chat, or they don't inquire because of this, is they'll go to their employees and ask, are we missing calls? Do you feel that we're getting the calls whenever the phones ring? Like, think about how crazy that question is, everybody. But this is what a lot of you do. Of course, the employees are going to say, oh, yeah, we're grabbing them. We're answering them. Very few employees are going to go, no, I know we're missing them, because that takes a forward mindset that you typically don't get from that pay level. And heck, a lot of you that listen to this show, I mean, we have from entrepreneurs outside of our niche to inside some of the most successful, forward-thinking business owners in the world. And a lot of them who are customers start thinking this way. But a lot of you out there that listen to the podcast and you're part of the podcast family, but not necessarily a customer, even getting you to think this way is a real challenge. Stop asking your team. They don't know. They're not going to tell you. They're not going to think of all these scenarios that we're talking on here and going to talk more about today. They don't know. The last people you want to go, hey, are we answering all the calls? The team says yes. Right. I also see the Wright Chat customers, very few people leave us, but the ones who do have a lot of similar traits. And I don't want to go into all those traits, but one of them is you'll get make believe named Nancy come to the doctor and say, I don't think we need the service, right? They try to sabotage it. And the doctor goes, okay, all right, we're out. Or some cheaper option, comes along and they don't even remote into the software. They don't speak as your employee. Like, they're cheaper for a reason. And they'll switch based on money again, because they can put their finger on it, and they forget it's all about how your brand is being represented. But stop listening to your team. Like, these things, everybody, they are happening. Whether your team realizes it or not, they're happening. Everybody, Brian Wright. Let's step away from today's episode. It's a great one. I hope you're enjoying it. Very powerful, really going through 5 ways that's really killing your new patient or new customer acquisition strategy, that if you plug them, it can make an immediate impact to your business, to your practice. So I hope you take action on these things today. Be an infinite-minded leader and go and make sure that you're plugging leaky holes that you can't put your finger on that are happening to all of you out there. In the description below, I'm going to put a link where you can schedule a free consultation with New Patient Group and or Wright Chat. And let's plug these leaky holes together. Let us answer as your backup. Let us train your people how to answer the phones at a really high level that we're going to be talking about here momentarily, because that arguably is even the bigger leak, is when the phones are answered, but your people aren't trained by real experts in sales and hospitality on how to handle those situations. Also, the missed calls, the Google profiles. Let's partner together and let us help your business grow by plugging these leaky holes that happen to all of you. We've got a really cool offer that we can combine the Wright Chat and New Patient Group services together that we will talk to you about on that free consultation when you schedule. So click the link. You can choose your date and time to meet with our VP of Sales, Brian Lewis. And now let's get back to today's episode.
Well, moving on. So just a little recap of that little rant, if you will, is all of you are missing calls. So get that through your head. Whether you're missing 1 a month or 25 a month, you're all missing them, and it's all adding. One of the things we talked about this earlier. We haven't brought it up today on this episode. Is again, it goes back to you're not making money on Joe. You're making money, and this is true for our niche, but this is also true for a restaurant, right? If I go into a restaurant and I sit down and I eat and I spend money and I like it, and then I leave and I say, hey, Rob, this place is freaking awesome. You got to go, right? Mm-hmm. And you go, that's where the restaurant makes money off of me, is the referrals. And then Rob goes in there and Rob goes, this is amazing. I'm going to go tell Cindy or whatever. This is the same for our niche, where you're not making money on Joe. You're making money on Joe's sister, her brother, his two friends, his dad, cousins, and the domino stream that comes from it. And this is a real big challenge on how all of you look at numbers. Because if you look at Joe and the return you get, and you look at it transactionally, meaning just Joe's money, you may look at a backup service and you get maybe, let's say we answered 1 or 2 calls this month. We have doctors, and this just blows my mind, but this is how you think. You have doctors that go, it's not worth the investment, right? When 1 or 2 a month for a couple months pays for the service the whole freaking year, they don't look at the infinite data of all the revenue that can come from that person if you turn them into a fan. They don't look at it that way. So they're so transactionally focused.
Well, I think that requires the internal approach, because I think one of the next topics you wanted to talk about was the idea that when the phone rings and it's answered, now what is the conversion like?
Exactly.
I mean, people call and ask questions. I told a story where I drove up to this car wash, bought a house in a new neighborhood, needed a new membership car wash, and there was one across the street from the one I drove into, and the attendant, they were sitting there, and I said, sell me on this car wash. Why should I use your car wash? And he had a very good answer, and it's very quick. He says, look at the length of it compared to the length of the other one. This one has twice as many brushes, twice as many stations, twice as many opportunities to get your car clean compared to that one. That one can't do it. It's not even long enough. And I was like, that's a pretty good answer. Sign me up. And I have been extremely happy with that car wash ever since. And it does wash my car very well. And it has all the same vacuum and all the different, facilities, but he made a point of difference, right? And if
sold the value.
Yeah. And if a person doesn't have that point of difference right on top of their tongue, if you're calling an orthodontic office, for example, and they say, well, why should I come to you? Is my kid a candidate? Am I a candidate as an adult? Whatever.
Right.
That has to be sold very, very quickly.
Yes,
and I would say probably a lot of team members can do that, but not all of them.
If they're trained.
And they have to be trained or very experienced.
Yeah.
And so with staff turnover, we get people that don't have that experience. Yeah. And if you have a 25-year employee that happens to answer that phone, they're probably going to answer that pretty well. They've been in the business for quite some time.
I'm gonna argue with you on that.
Yeah, and there's probably exceptions, but the reality is we have turnover. We have to hire new people at times, and what are we doing? Do we want to wait 25 years of lost opportunities?
Yeah,
or 20 or 10 or whatever the case may be? Do we want to wait that time, or do we want to accelerate it? By giving them the tools to understand how to convert those people and get them in. Because these are, again, lost opportunities.
I guarantee you. So that this is what you just said. Like they've been around 25 years. They're experienced. So here's the challenge in the especially in our niche, is that data shows dental economics says people are calling 5 or more practices. They're going into 3 or more. Right? You all are in a commodity. So when you're a commodity, especially, and you hear me talk about this all the time, what we teach is how to charge higher prices and convert at higher levels and turn your customer base, your patient base, into the fans that go out and sell you in the community. There is an art to that. That art is making sure every touch point up the sale and every touch point after sale exceeds expectations. Nobody inside the practice environment understands sales, hospitality, things like that. Now, some are naturally better at it than others, right? Maybe they're more joyful and bubbly and their people skills are better, right? But that is not enough when I'm calling 5 practices and saying, how much do you charge for Invisalign? Do you take my insurance? What is it? Why is it better? Et cetera, et cetera. You could
overcoming price objection.
Right. That one is
that's huge.
That is huge. And one of our, because not the topic today, but definitely on topic is, and all of you, just like the exercise I was talking about with Dave and going out and just observing, like that's what I'm so passionate about, that exercise. It's something we have our doctors do a lot. And it's scary if you're actually paying attention. Here's another one. If you mystery call your practice, and if you want us to do a mystery call for you, we can. I can link that up in the description below. We can mystery call it, record it, and prove to you all these opportunities or lost opportunities exist. Like, quick side note, remember last night as we do this podcast today, Brian Lewis, like he calls, so our VP of sales mystery calls practices, and time again, nobody answers. Like, and he will tell them, and they still don't do anything. It's mind-blowing. But if you go back and you mystery call your practice, and you also mystery call 100 more, and I know this because I bring people up on stage. I said, let's look at the scenario, go. And after I do 5 or 6 role plays with 5 or 6 different people, I'll change the slide, and the slide says everything they all said. Like, I know to a T what they're going to say, no matter what objection, question, or anything, because you guys are all taught by industry consultants that wouldn't be hired to coach sales in any business in the world. So they all water you down and teach it in a way that adds no value. So there's 3 ways your receptionist, and I will pay you $1,000. You can mark this. I will pay you $1,000 if you mystery call your practice and your receptionist doesn't do one of these 3. You say, and again, we're just using Invisalign because it's easy to get. If you're outside our niche, you still know what it is. If you're inside our niche, obviously you know what it is. How much you charge for Invisalign? They either do one thing and they'll quote the total price. That's $6,000, right? Which the only way you win that battle is if you want to be the cheapest, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that's why you guys hear me talk about is that, the Ritz-Carlton has a very different business model than the Best Western. The Best Western, probably okay if you quote the fee. They want to be cheap. That's their value proposition. We're cheaper, right? Etc. If you're the JW Marriott or above, or if you're the Best Western and you want to aspire to be higher level, you can't quote the fee. But what you also can't do is say, I can't give you an answer, right? Which is the second way they do it, is sorry, we really don't quote fees over the phone. You need to come in. That's kind of the next way, right? The third way is they quote a range, right? It's usually, $5,000 to $7,000 depending on your case. All 3 are guaranteed recipes for failure when people are shopping around. So people are like, okay, what other option is there? And I'm going to link, it's our most popular phone course there is, but I'm going to link it below, and I'll put a code to where you guys can get it. It'll either be a discounted rate or free. Watch the course because you will be blown away. There's 3 steps to overcoming an adult price inquiry. 5, actually, let me reverse. It's 3 to overcome a kid price inquiry. 5 for the adult. So I said that backwards. You'll be astonished at what happens. But that kind of takes us into what we're talking about is what happens when they do answer the phones. And, the scheduling rate in orthodontics and dentistry is only 68%. So 32% of all calls that you do answer, the receptionist is not converting for all the reasons we're talking about. And this drives me crazy too. And Rob thinks differently. Like, he has his phones trained with the new patient group stuff. Like, he thinks differently, but why the hell you all as clinicians, as business owners, don't understand that you're getting all these inquiries and your team members are not professionally trained by real experts on how to handle them. And they're all leading to lost opportunities.
I think it has a lot to do with the Boschkin story. You mentioned that he's so busy, he did not realize he had the problem. And I would argue that most of the clinicians don't realize that you have the problem, that you have team members who aren't answering this. It makes me nervous to listen to phone calls. Yeah. And my people are pretty good, but it still does make me nervous listening to phone calls because it's, you want them to shine. You want to answer the question the way that I would answer the question ideally. And it's frustrating. And so it's really easy not to know that you have the problem
Yeah.
for a lot of different reasons.
Yep.
Maybe you don't record the phone calls. Maybe you don't like to listen to the phone calls. Maybe you don't take the time to listen to the phone calls. Either way, all this is the same problem. You don't know you have the problem.
Yep.
So,
Well, this is why, in our niche, and I've seen this for so long, and it drives me nuts because our niche is very singular focused on conversion, and they tie it back to the treatment coordinator. So, if the conversion's good, you'll get people go, okay, what's Susie, your treatment coordinator, do? She must be amazing. If the conversion's bad, then all of a sudden Susie sucks. And they're very tunnel visioned like that, or they're so locked on. It's like what would happen if you're flying a plane in the soup and you're so locked on to one thing, you kill yourself, right? And that's how they are. Is they get so locked on to one thing, they can't see the broader picture, where the receptionist has an equal impact, if not arguably greater, on the conversion than the treatment coordinator, for all kinds of reasons. Some we're talking about today, but a lot we're not. Could be shows for another time.
well, they all kind of go into the impression,
Yeah.
right? And so, and that impression starts with answering the phone or not.
Yep.
Right? And then from there goes to how that phone call is handled. And it depends on the consumer. If that consumer is asking questions, then how those questions are answered
Yes.
goes into the impression.
Yep.
And that impression is built and it's improved, and hopefully all the way up to when they give you money.
Well,
And then even through the
After
treatment
they give you
process
money, yeah.
as well. You know what I mean? That is important as well. But,
Yeah.
but certainly that's a milestone. When a person gives you money, that's a milestone in their relationship.
without a doubt. So the piece on, boy, I don't even want to get into that piece because I'll go on forever. Where this is off topic, but I'm just going to say it anyway. No matter how great your food is as a chef out there, no matter how great your clinical skills are, that is not how creates fans. Michelin star restaurants know this, right? What creates fans in a Michelin star is the food plus all the experiences that have nothing to do with the food, but everything to do with how much you can charge for it and how much of it you'll sell. Which again, that's what we teach on here. And it's the same in the orthodontic world, the dental world, whatever, is that your clinical skills will not create fans. It's all the other things around it. Your clinical skills will not allow you to dictate how much you can charge. It's all the other things around it, whether you want to hear it or not. And on the phone training piece, and this goes back to why they have just as equal impact, is how good is your treatment coordinator at closing somebody that never walks through the door? Right? Not very good.
Right.
So if I overcome a really hard price increase and I'm able to sell the value and get them through the door, what I'm doing is now setting your treatment coordinator up to be able to charge a higher price. If I sell that we're cheap, come in and see us, you're screwing your treatment coordinator, because if you want to charge higher prices, you just had somebody show up that they're not there because of the value. You're there because you're cheap, which is why, a few episodes ago, we did a one on why your marketing strategy sucks. And we talked about, and I always make the restaurant or the hotel analogy of Best Western, JW, Ritz. You have to define which one of those you want to be. And everything you do is different based on that, right? You can't be running price-sensitive pay-per-click ads and wanting to charge more than 8 opinions. Like, that doesn't work. It drives your marketing is disconnected from the vision and what exists and what you want to be internally. And this is very similar. Like the way your receptionist has to speak. Yesterday, so we did as we do this podcast today, we cooked a huge meal last night, and we went to Whole Foods to get it. And I noticed it, but not as much as Rob said. And once you brought it up, I really started rethinking it. We dropped, what was it, $500+ on dinner to cook for everybody. And the bagger and the girl checking out pretty much couldn't have been more rude.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it's very indifferent.
Yeah. It
it's
wasn't
like,
even a thank you.
It was just a poor personal experience.
It was. And it sounds off topic, but it's not, because this is another lost leaky hole that Whole Foods has that they're never going to be able to put their finger on, because I guarantee you they're not training those people even to say thank you. And we appreciate the business.
Oh, it certainly wasn't that.
It wasn't even close to
It
that.
wasn't even.
Yeah.
That would have been a treat.
It would have been nice. Yeah. And what also was the guy in the meat market was so great.
Yeah, he
But
was.
what do we remember? We remember the crappy experience at the end. And whether it's in the beginning or whatever, humans typically remember the crappy part, which is why customer experience is so damn hard. Is you could get nine times right, the 10th time wrong, and that's what humans remember. That's why none of this is supposed to be easy.
And bad news travels faster than good news.
It sure does. And that's, none of this is an overnight fix, but with Wright Chat, it is. Like it is an overnight fix. But you also have to get your people trained on the phones, right? So that's really the topic that we're on at this given moment. So you've got your Google profile, web leads, voicemails. If you are lucky enough to get somebody to leave you one, those have to be returned right away. Answer the missed calls that are happening to all of you, even though you cannot see the data. And then get your people trained at a really, really high level. And we were talking about this earlier, and this is not just at the practice level. This goes up to the corporate level and how much they lose because of the leaky holes inside these practices. And they're incapable of seeing it too. I mean, I've spoken for a line now for, 10 years, and faculty for a couple now. And I've had 1,000 conversations with them, OrthoFi. Back when I spoke for dental monitoring, don't anymore because of my relationship with Invisalign, and many other companies on, every time every time someone leaves a voicemail, you don't call them back. A web lead comes in, you don't hit them up in under 10 minutes. Every time a price inquiry is mishandled, an insurance objection is inquiry is mishandled. Anytime a phone call is mishandled, whatever the scenario is, anytime it's not answered, all of these add up to millions for the practice, single location, but hundreds of millions for these corporations that are losing out because of how these practices handle the calls.
And we mentioned that there's a lot of competition within the clear aligner industry right now. So, the patient, I would say consumers probably don't differentiate between Invisalign and another clear aligner. And frankly, they don't care usually because Invisalign is almost like a Xerox copy or a Kleenex, and that's a brand and they've done well to do that. But if a patient has confidence due to the experiences and everything within the practice that another clear aligner can get them to their solution, they'll probably take it.
Well, they care up until they get inside the practice. Because I know a lot of practices that do Invisalign, but they also do other aligners. And, maybe they do Invisalign to meet their status quota to keep the price, their lab fee intact. But anything above that, they'll do another aligner as an example. So I think people care when they type it in because it's all they know. It's the only name they know. But once it gets down to the doctor saying what clear aligner to use, I don't think people care. Right? It's just the reality. So, but if you can think about, you're watching a commercial, Invisalign commercial, you go to Google, you type it in, 100 practices come up, and you call practice 1 and you're all excited about it, nobody answers, right? Then you call practice B and you want to go, hey, I've saved up some money, I want to know how much you charge for it. And you're really excited about it. Receptionist doesn't know how to handle it. That doesn't convert. So now we're 0 for 2. So it's not, so the practices each are 0 for like one practice lost, another practice lost, but now it's 0 for 2 for Invisalign as a company. Now you call practice 3, that practice may be somebody that does Spark. Angel, like you could do all kind of Angel aligner, which is growing. They could put you into a non-Invisalign product. Invisalign loses out on the lab fee and they never know it, right? And all they're going to do is just keep doing the events they do.
And there's no way to find out.
And that's the problem with, you all know how I feel about this out there, is the way MBAs think. Like my cousin, he's retired now. He was MBA. He was the chief financial officer for American Airlines. MBA. I got in arguments with him all the time because they would do things like, and I had this conversation with them, do things like, well, American Airlines is, I'll never forget reading this story and then calling him. American Airlines is starting to not have first class seats. They're going more like Southwest. Not in all of them, but they're having trouble selling them. And I'm talking to him. And like, as smart as he is, he can't figure out why. And I'm going, dude, it's because every year you increase your prices and decrease the experience. The food sucks worse. the seats suck worse. The flight attendants aren't trained how to talk. Like, you cut back on the wine. Like, the list goes on and on and on. Meanwhile, you're increasing your prices and then wonder why people won't freaking buy the damn seats. How about increasing the experiences and increase the prices, and you'll be fine. And for whatever reason, they think so much about the numbers on paper because that's what the college professors that have never owned a business in their life taught them.
Well, because you can measure those.
You can measure them. But the problem is they're all liars, every one of them. And they're taught that if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. And it could not be further from the truth. And this is why, the smartest business brains in the world, 75% of billionaires never went to college or they dropped out, so they don't have a degree. And if you look at, there's an interview, and you guys should go check this out. If I can find it, I'll link it up in the description. But there's this interview where they're interviewing the Shark Tank people. And Barbara, when they're talking to her, and every one of them said it at a different time. But the one with Barbara sticks to me because she was even more adamant. Like, what do you attribute your success to? And they're all like, they can't pinpoint one thing. But what Barbara goes, well, man, I'm gonna have to think about that one. But I can tell you the number one thing I don't, and that's understanding numbers. They're all liars. I don't know anything about them. All I know is experience and relationships, and I'll invest whatever kind of money it is to make sure the experience for people get better and my relationships grow deeper. And that is such a difference between an entrepreneur and a corporation, because they will nickel and dime the experiences like crazy to where they think they're making a buck. And this is an example. It's so hard to convince, like OrthoFi, another example. OrthoFi is dependent on practices growing, right? They take a percentage of production. So the more the practice grows, they're a part of that growth because they're helping you grow, and therefore they get more per customer. So if OrthoFi were to put like a Wright chat solution in all of their, like it came with the service as an example, and they were just throwing money at it or whatever, they would double. At minimum, they would double in size as a company without adding one new customer, just from the extra revenue coming into these practices.
Because I don't know what percentage of practices have OrthoFi. It's a small percentage.
I don't know. Much smaller than Invisalign is an example.
Yeah, so if the patient calls that practice and it's missed, correct, the next practice probably doesn't have OrthoFi.
Exactly, and that's where we were talking earlier, where Invisalign can get lucky because if I type it in and 5 come up, pretty good chance all 5 are doing it. Now, whether or not they pull the switcheroo when you get indoors and try to convince you, who knows? But Invisalign can get lucky because of that. And OrthoFi or some of these remote monitoring companies that also depend on how many patients you're putting into remote monitoring, they're going to lose because if practice A does remote monitoring and they miss the call, if you call practice B, they're not doing remote monitoring. Same way with ortho, so just like what you just said. You call practice A that does OrthoFi, they mishandle the call. They miss it. You call practice B, they're not doing OrthoFi. So these companies get obliterated just like the practice, but they're not reaching out going, okay, what do we do? How do we plug the phones? They're constantly in how do we get more customers mode, just like the practices. Meanwhile, if you just answer your phones, fix A, B, and C, you're going to grow like a weed.
Well, I think that summing up, these are all lost opportunities. These are all unmeasurable lost opportunities.
Yep. I mean, no matter what business you are out there, a niche, obviously, but last year, and shout out to everybody coming to Iconic in Nashville this year. Again, if you haven't, we've got very limited seats left, so registration link will be in the description below. When we had our first team Iconic, which was January last year, as this podcast comes out, we did a restaurant scenario. And the restaurant scenario was, okay, you have a couple and it's their 50th wedding anniversary. And they're trying to decide which steakhouse to go to. And the whole event is making the teams understand the A to Z journey. It's like, okay, what about the digital marketing could affect that choice? What about the incoming phone call, how the receptionist handles it and sells them on the value? Then what happens after the phone call's over and before they arrive, like all the touch points that we teach along the experience journey. And it was interesting because the teams did great because they applied the training we give them inside the practice to all these holes. So point being is you could be a restaurant listening, lawyer, whatever, is these holes are the same no matter what. And you, especially the more you charge. That's the thing too. It just is weird to me. Is like an ortho, and that's $5, $6, $7, $8 a pop. It's not like they're doing $10 t-shirts. So you would think that they would want to make sure all these opportunities are coming in, because it only takes 1 or 2 a month to add up to 150, 400 grand, like that kind of thing. It just happens like that. But appreciate everybody's good, huh?
Yeah.
Good messaging.
Great.
Hopefully, in the beauty of,
I have some things I'm going to be looking at just based on what we talked about, and I just lit something in my brain that says I'm going to go look at that.
Yeah.
I'm losing opportunities, and I can't measure it.
You can't measure it.
Yeah.
And that's why you just have to know they're happening. And at least, this is the other, I guess we'll leave on this too, is that you can't, we'll use Wright Chat as an example just for the obvious, but whatever company it is, you can't hire them for 2 months, guys, or 6 months, or honestly, even a year. It's a vision of how you want your brand represented at all times. Like screw the numbers. Is it a better reflection of your brand if you answer the call or if you don't? Answer's obvious. Better reflection if somebody has to leave a voicemail or not. Answer's obvious. That's how you got to think. And use the companies that can make sure your brand is being represented great at all times. And the growth and everything else will take care of itself. So it's not even about the growth of the numbers. It's just about we've all called places they didn't answer and we were pissed. Like it just represents you brand like shit.
Yeah. Well, we have a responsibility to our patients to help solve their problem. And man, if we're good at what we do,
yeah,
we should shore up all of the shortcomings that we have in our operations.
Well, this is the whole why the better business will defeat the better chef. The better business will defeat the better clinician. It's the same thing. I call practice A. He's got the best clinician in town. Nobody answers, or they answer and they suck, right? And they don't convert me. That could be the best clinician around. Then I call practice B. Clinician sucks, does horrible work. Nickels and dimes, everything. And they answer their phones. They train the receptionist. She sells me. The value is great. I come in and buy. Like this is how it works. And it's so hard to convince people of that too, is the business will defeat the product, right? Like it, or the other way around. But anyway, guys, I'll put all the links we talked about today in the description below. And it was good having you back in, man.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, we'll try to get another 1 or 2 done before he flies home. But YouTube followers, hey there, appreciate it. Thumbs up, make some comments. Remember, if you have a question or a comment, other people are thinking it too. They may just be scared to be the first one to ask. So be a leader. Start the comments in the comments section below. And audio experienced listeners out there, as always, please write us a 5-star review and share with anybody looking to transform life, career, and/or business. And until next time, everybody, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.